What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Draft Hub, and I am continuing my record predictions for each conference of college football before the 2025-26 season. And today we're going to do a little bit of a different one, a little bit of a shorter one. We're going to hit the FBS independents and the Pac-12, or the Pac-2, rather, I would say. So, obviously, the four teams that are on the screen, there's no surprise here. These are the four teams that we will be going over today. And if you don't know, the two FBS independents will be the UConn Huskies and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And the members of the Pac-12/Pac-2 are the Oregon State Beavers and the Washington State Cougars. So this is a little bit of a combination of both. I didn't want to make just a video for the FBS independents that only have two teams and then the Pac-2. So I figured I would combine them. There's really no rhyme or reason to this. This is not in any order. This is just predicting the records of all four teams, just talking about the outlook of the season for all of them. And we're going to get you out of here, hopefully, in about 10 to 15 minutes. But before we get into this video here, if you enjoy this type of content and all the other record predictions for each conference video I've been doing, please leave a like and please subscribe to the channel for up-to-date college football, NFL draft, anything really that has to do with football. You name it, it's going on here, especially come draft time. So without further delay, let's get into this quick prediction video. Kicking it off with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish here. I had them at a record prediction of 11-1, and I wanted to put it at 12-0 so bad. It's just those first two opening games are really two of the toughest games, the two toughest games on paper on their schedule. That being the opener against Miami, bye week, have a game at A&M. So they do catch an L at Miami or against Texas A&M. Notre Dame Fighting Irish team at 12-0 so bad. A college football championship game appearance last year. Unfortunately, Ohio State was just too good for really anyone. But this Notre Dame Fighting Irish team honestly has, I would say, probably the most NFL talent on a roster right now, at least on the offensive side in college football. Just a great offensive line, unbelievable playmakers. Jeremiah Love is going to be this year's Ashton Jeanty, in my opinion. I think he's going to be a lock to be a top 10 to 15 pick. Marcus Freeman is a great leader of men. He's a great head coach. Christian Gray is a young leader, a returning young leader on this team. This is a little bit of a less experienced defensive group that we're used to seeing from Notre Dame. A lot of redshirt sophomores, a lot of juniors taking the reins and starting roles here. This is a team that I think is young and feisty on the defensive side, maybe a little bit more unproven than we've seen in Notre Dame Fighting Irish past teams on the defensive side. But the offense is really where Notre Dame is going to make its bread and butter this year. You have Jeremiah Love, you have Jaden Greathouse, you have transferring in Malachi Fields from Virginia. Just an unbelievable wide receiving core this team has. I mean, they are I'd say probably 5 or 6 deep from the wide receiver position. Unbelievable weapons. Now, the biggest outlier on this team is going to be CJ Carr, who essentially has really no competition for the quarterback one role as of right now. It looks like he's going to be rolled into this season as the redshirt freshman starter. So really, I'm going to assume that they are not going to rely too much on him, at least early on. I think it's going to be a lot of Jeremiah Love. You have great blocking wide receivers out there. Malachi Fields is a great blocking wide receiver. Jaden Greathouse, as I mentioned before, is one of my favorite sleeper wide receivers in this class. He is a fantastic blocker in his own right. This defense is feisty. They are fast. They are aggressive. Marcus Freeman is a defensive-minded coach. You know he's going to squeeze every ounce of talent from all of those defensive players that he absolutely can. The offense just really hinders on one true question: how good can CJ Carr be early on? We know he has the talent. It's just a matter of transitioning to that, number one role, that everyday starter. And really, this schedule is quite easy from top to bottom. After you get through the first 2 weeks, you have Purdue, Arkansas, Boise State, which could be a tough one, NC State, USC is always, unpredictable, Boston College, Navy, Pitt, Syracuse, and Stanford. They are missing a lot of tough teams on this schedule this year. But yeah, besides for those those first two, where I do think they'll probably catch a loss against one of those teams. I do think if they wind up going 2-0 off of those first two games, you're probably looking at a team that goes 12-0 and could challenge again for a spot in the college football championship game. I genuinely think that they have that much talent. I think not only can they repeat and go back to the championship game, I think they have plenty of talent to win the championship game, and it only hinges really on how good this young defense can be and how acclimated can Notre Dame get CJ Carr as fast as they can get him acclimated. So I'm expecting huge things from the Notre Dame Fighting Irish this season. Next, I want to talk about the UConn Huskies here. Under Jim Mora's leadership, this team, this program really has kind of turned it around. They have been not only very good the last few years, but they have produced quite a bit of NFL talent over the last couple of years. And I feel like that's going to be a continuing trend this year at the very least. So you get some returning offensive strengths right away. This is a team that went 8-4 and won a bowl game last year. Let's not forget. But I think I have them at 9-3. It's a combination of returning offensive superstars, a strengthened defense through transfers, Jim Mora's leadership, and just honestly a pretty fairly manageable schedule. Even when you talk about the FBS opponents that they will be facing this year, or the Power 4 opponents rather, it's relatively manageable. We will get into that. But I want to talk about the offensive players that are returning first and foremost. And, right away, you're looking at the run game. You got Cam Edwards, Darrell Robinson, and Mel Brown, who accumulated over 2,200 rushing yards last year. And then you want to talk about a weapon to throw to. You got Skylar Bell, who had 860-plus receiving yards last year. They brought in a couple transfer wide receivers as well. This is a strong offensive line unit as well. I mean, this is offensively, you don't have to worry about this team. Defensively, they strengthened through the defensive line, through the transfer portal. Trent Jones, the second linebacker, Taekwon King, who had 111 tackles from Temple last year. They dipped into the AAC portal quite well. That was a nice pull from Temple University there. And I mean, the schedule, if we want to talk about the schedule here for the UConn Huskies, right away, you're starting off against Central Connecticut State. You got a couple Power 4 opponents. You have Syracuse that they have to worry about, Boston College, Duke. But then, those are really the three games that I think are the most losable for them. And I think Syracuse is a game that potentially could be a winner. They're facing Delaware, Ball State, Buffalo. That's three lower tier. Delaware joined Conference USA, and Ball State and Buffalo are from the MAC. You have FIU, Rice, UAB, who are at the bottom of the AAC. Florida Atlantic. This is a very, very manageable schedule for the UConn Huskies, and I think Jim Mora has really found a lane here. He develops very, very sound NFL-ready talent at this program. He's found his lane. The offense has returning superstars. The defense was strengthened. Cam Chadwick is a heck of a player in the secondary. I think has true NFL potential. I think you're looking at a very, very strong UConn Huskies team. Probably the strongest roster they've had in quite some time. So I'm excited to see. I'm expecting big things from the UConn Huskies, and I think especially with this relatively favorable schedule, where even if they lose two games, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if 9-3 is kind of a happy medium between 8-4 and 10-2 for this team. They have the talent, they have the coaching, and the schedule is there for them to make quite an impressive run this season. Now I want to talk about Washington State here, going over from the FBS Independents over to the Pac-12, or the aforementioned Pac-2. So this is a team, obviously, that went 8-4 last year, made quite a bit of noise. They had superstar quarterback transfer John Mateer, who did transfer over to Oklahoma in the offseason. So a massive transfer for Oklahoma and a massive loss for Washington State and Jimmy Rogers. But ZV Eckhouse is a player that I think could step in pretty well. He did a fairly decent job when he stepped in towards the end of last year. 600-plus touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He looked pretty good. I think he can firmly take the reins of this wide-open offense here. Josh Meredith is a player that improved from year 1 to 2 quite a bit, went from, I think, 50 receiving yards to almost 500 last year. He's a player that I like quite a bit to take a massive step forward. But this run game is really is really going to take center stage here. And what I mean by that is really the three transfers: Angel Johnson, Kirby Voorhees, Maxwell Woods. That these are three guys that are going to come in, and really there's no bell cow here. This is going to be a huge attack. And you look at Washington State's rushing attack last year, and you look at how good the numbers were. That's because the majority of times it was John Mateer. But now you lose John Mateer, and now you replace him essentially with three transfers in. So how this offensive line plays, how this run game works, it's going to be a massive transition for Jimmy Rogers and this team. But I do think the schedule is there for them to I think 7-5 would be relatively impressive considering all the losses that they faced through the NFL draft and through the transfer portal this year. But Caleb Francie is a South Dakota State player that I like quite a bit. I mean, you want to talk about an undersized linebacker, a star type linebacker. That's Caleb Francie, 6'1", around that 190 to 200 pound range. Would obviously be better off for his pro potential to probably transition over to play some type of strong safety. But man, he is a player that loves to tackle, loves to pursue. I'm trying to look and see what his numbers were last year. I did have the 78 tackles, 7 broken passes, and 11 tackles for a loss last year. He was all over the place. I think he would be an player at the safety position. We're going to roll as the weak side linebacker this year, but yeah, the success of Washington State's offense for me lies within how good of a transition this run game is going to make. The offensive line is still relatively good. The defense, it's tough because Jake Dickert went to Wake Forest. He took a few offensive players with him as well. He took Carlos Hernandez. He took a couple of offensive linemen with him. But the offensive line is still in good shape for the most part. The weapons are still there. The defense is still relatively intact. It's not the best unit, but they could certainly get by. The schedule here, let's take a look at the schedule real quick. I do have it right here. So, Idaho, San Diego State, and North Texas right away. You could easily probably start the year off 3-0. Then you face a little bit of a tough back-to-back: Washington, Colorado State, Ole Miss, Virginia. That's a bad 4 games. Toledo is no slouch either. Then you have Oregon State, Louisiana Tech, James Madison, Oregon State. So this is a team that I think could be anywhere between that 7-5 to 5-7 win range. I like Jimmy Rogers as a coach. I think that he can get the most out of this roster. So I have them at 7-5, but I could definitely see people saying that they go either 6-6 or 5-7 just as well. I think it's going to be a massive transition period for them, but I think they have the right man at the helm, and I think they have the right pieces in place, especially offensively, to start making that transition away from John Mateer. And then finally here in this shorter prediction video, I have the Oregon State Beavers, who I think are going to be around that 6-6 range with Trent Bray. Anthony Hankerson is a player that I like quite a bit. A ton of scores last year, really led this offense for the most part. Malik Murphy is the transfer quarterback who did not have a great season. I believe he was with Duke last year. Did not have a great season with Duke. Is a former transfer from Texas as well. I believe a former 5-star recruit as well. So hopefully bringing in Malik Murphy can kind of offset the other offensive losses that they had, especially on the offensive line. You have a couple redshirt freshmen taking over starting spots. Joshua Gray, was the biggest loss on the offensive line for the Oregon State Beavers. They got back Thomas Collins this year, who is a relatively undersized defensive tackle, but he can get after the ball carrier. So I think he's going to break out in a big way for this team. This is just a team, unfortunately, that I feel like has kind of had a little bit, I shouldn't say a stark fall from grace, but a little bit of a fall from grace the past few years. This was a team that was littered with NFL talent just a couple of years ago, if you've forgotten. But this team, it's going to be tough for them. They've just been hammered with Power 4 transfers the last couple of years. It just seems like at any time that any player on Oregon State has a good season, they're kind of transferring out. But they've lost a lot of good players over the last couple of years on the defensive side. On the offensive side, a couple names that come to mind over the last couple of years: Luke Musgrave on the offensive side, Kitten Oladapo on the defensive side. Just a massive turnover every year for this team. But I think Hankerson is a huge part of this offense, the biggest part. I think you're looking at a possible 1,000-yard running back. Oh, don't forget last year they transitioned away from Damian Martinez as well. I forgot that he was on Oregon State for a second there. But yeah, this is just a team that gets hammered with a lot of transfers, and I think Hankerson is going to be a player that they did retain this year that I'm super excited about for them. And I think 6-6 is it's tough. The defense isn't where you really want it to be. The offense has a lot of question marks, especially with Malik Murphy probably spearheading that side of the ball. Yeah, so this schedule is tough. I think it'll be tough for them to get over 6 wins here. Cal, Fresno State, those are matchups that honestly I think could go either way for this team. Texas Tech, Oregon, Houston, those are 3 really, really tough matchups back to back to back. App State, Wake Forest, Lafayette. Then you have Washington State, Sam Houston, who is a big time sleeper, I feel like, this year. And then they have Tulsa, which is a pretty relatively easy game, and then Washington State. So this is going to be a tough year for the Oregon State Beavers. Again, I feel like this is another transitional year for this team. Just another status quo until the Pac-12 gets reformed. You know, Oregon State and Washington State were kind of hung out to dry last year and being the only 2 teams. But yeah, I do think Oregon State, under Trent Bray's leadership, has a chance to potentially do a little bit better. But that schedule renders it really difficult, especially in the middle there. They have 7 really tough matchups right in the middle of their season. So I think this is going to be another transitional year. I think the recruitment, the transfer period, they need to do some damage this upcoming year. But yeah, I would say I'm probably, out of the 4 teams that we went over here, I'm probably least confident in the Oregon State Beavers, but I still think at 6-6, they could potentially get into a bowl game. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. There is my 2025 record predictions for the PAC-2 and the FBS Independents. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I see you in the next one.